to ask Steve Judd, and I'm going to find this session really interesting because I'm going to be asking him about magic, alchemy, and astrology and what that means, because I don't know a lot about it. So, Steve, I know you want to introduce us to the difference between astrological magic and alchemy and magic and alchemy. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, I just want to clarify a couple of points before we delve into astrological magic, because that's the main theme that we're here for. We're astrologers and we're talking about magic, right? First of all, alchemy is so much more than magic. Any word in the English language that begins with AL comes from the Moorish influence from the north coast of Africa between about 600 AD to 1100 AD. And it is the Moors who not only gave us the telescope, but they invented words like alcohol, algebra, alchemy. And of course, it's from alchemy we get chemistry.
Yeah.
So any word that begins with L has a Moorish etymology. I belong to a online academic group. I'm a lurker, not a practitioner, called the Journal for the Academic Study of Magic, JASM. These are academics who study practitioners and study the practice of magic. They are not practitioners. I am not a practitioner, although I know certain minor techniques. I would like to introduce to listeners, for those of you who wish to study the basic forms of magic, I would suggest that firstly, especially if you're in the UK, as many of you are, that you procure this wonderful book, The Book of English Magic by Philip Carr-Gomm.
Oh, he's wonderful.
And it's a history, and Richard Haygate, it's a history of how magic has been used in England over the last 1,000 or so years, and it'll give you a solid basis in it, and it will dispel many of the illusions and myths around the use of magic in England. And this is English magic, not Scottish, Welsh, or Irish. But I would also suggest that for those of you that are interested in exploring the intricacies of this a bit more, especially in terms of the etymology and the language used, that you can buy a very thick book on all the different languages, or you can buy the abridged version, which is this.
Right, that looks oh, it's got a magical square on it. I love it.
Yes, it's full of different types of magical script and alphabets. It's a guide to the alphabets and the symbols that have been used in magic throughout all different cultures over the last 2,000 years. And there's a lot of astrology in there. Finally, before we actually get into the astrological magic, coming back to the alchemy. Alchemy is a subject that many people they know little about. It's been an interesting
confused about it, aren't they? I mean, it's confused. Yes.
There is this wonderful hypothetical thing called the Philosopher's Stone. And for many people, it's just as basic as, okay, how do I change lead into gold? Which potentially has actually been done once, long ago, at tremendous cost to the practitioner.
Wow.
And I mean tremendous cost, not recommended.
No.
And you can find out about that in that book.
Okay.
The Book of English Magic. But it's a metaphor. The idea of alchemy is to transmute and transform one's own, to elevate one's consciousness, to become more and more refined. And obviously, the more refined we become, the more we can tune into higher frequencies, access different vibrations of energy, and as a result, do things in our lives that previously we couldn't be able to do. And here I quote Arthur C. Clarke: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
And yeah, are you, I mean, would Jung describe this as working with the shadow, uncovering the unconscious, allowing yourself to walk into the underworld with Pluto to transmute your baser whatevers to become more conscious and
To
more
become, to empower the light within.
yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
yes. I've always, whenever I'm doing a reading or whenever I'm talking with you, always got a little beeswax candle going. And
yeah,
I just love the flame.
yes.
And it is through the flame. I used to spend hours and hours, sometimes whole nights, staring into candle flame when I was possibly doing things I shouldn't have been doing when I was much younger. But it was an amazing experience. But a little anecdote. A few years ago, I was with my partner and we were in the city of Salzburg in Vienna, in Austria, sorry. And we were just looking for somewhere to sit down, and we were in the old quarter, not the modern city. We were in the old quarter. And we were just looking for somewhere to sit down and have a cup of tea and just have a sandwich. We had our sandwiches and flasks with us. And I thought, oh, look, there's a graveyard. That'll be quiet. Let's go and sit in there. We walked in there and we thought, blimey, what's this? And there's a lot of tombs in the graveyard. And the entire Mozart family is buried in that graveyard, apart from Mozart himself. There's a lot of the old skull and crossbones motifs there, which is actually a very much older symbol than most people would have it as being. And we were just walking around looking at some of this magnificent sculptures and artwork. There was nothing creepy or dark about it at all. It was truly an enlightening experience. My partner turned around and said, Steve, come and look at this. And I went over and I said, what? She said, look. And there's a giant monolith in one corner, and next to it, someone's placed a vase with a bright red rose in it. And it was the tomb of Paracelsus, who's always been a kind of hero.
That's where he's buried.
That's where he's buried. This was a totally synchronistic experience. I had no knowledge he was there. I think his first name was Philippus, but I think it was Philippus von Hockenheim. No, Philippus Bombastus von Hockenheim, aka Paracelsus. And it's from this middle name that we get the word bombastic. Was quite an unpleasant man. He was very full of himself and very dismissive of anyone who didn't disagree with him. But he knew more of alchemy. In fact, he introduced alchemy to the Western world in the 1500s. He is the father of toxicology.
Yes.
And he is also the founder of homeopathy, in that he was the first person to say, treat a poison with the poison. Yeah. Treat an illness with the illness in a very small dosage. And his ideas were hundreds of years ahead of his time. And the red rose is his symbol. I've always got red roses around me.
Is he? I'm sure it was him that created the doctrine of signatures, which is looking at the shapes of the leaves of. He
was constantly in conflict with the Rosicrucians of the time, the original Rosicrucians, not the facsimiles that you have today, because they felt that they were the enlightened ones, and they had the Rosy Cross. They had the keys to alchemy, but actually Paracelsus was the real deal. He didn't have a pleasant death. He didn't have a pleasant life, but his reputation has outlived him big time.
Do you think that's because he was really delving into the dark stuff, and maybe I think
he was certainly capable of evoking and invoking energy fields that are not normally accessible to most other people most of the time. His contemporaries at that time in England were John Dee and Edmund Spencer, There's a lot of well-known stuff about Dee, but what's not
Yes.
well known is that towards the end of his life, he did turn to the dark, and he got together with this guy, Edmund Spencer, and they really did a lot of work on scrying with using obsidian bowls, which is not recommended.
Wow.
And they
I
got in
think
touch, they did a
just
lot
for
of
anybody who
necromancy.
just to explain what obsidian is to people that don't know what it is, Steve.
Obsidian is a very dark stone that's
Black.
that comes from the earth.
Yeah.
It can be polished and shaped, and it is like it
Well, it's
is
Pluto,
darker than jet.
and it's very Plutonian in its
It's
nature.
very Plutonian.
Yeah.
And if you carry too much obsidian around with you, most people will feel within a matter of minutes that they're in a very heavy state. They feel weighted down. It's
Yeah.
quite a strong influence.
Yes. It's good for grounding, but to do it really well and consciously. Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
Dee and Spencer, I think it was Spencer, was scrying using
Wow.
obsidian
Whoa.
bowls when with water in, and they were trying to invoke some negative spirits, manifestations, and to a certain extent they succeeded, which is why you have to be very careful with this type of energy,
Definitely.
because if you don't know exactly what you're doing, it will come back and bite you hard, and then you will be stuck in limbo for a very, very long time, if
Mm.
not forever.
I think
This
it's
is
really,
not
yeah, it's
control.
really important to not to frighten anyone around this, but if you are dabbling in magic or you're wanting to work with magic, just to be really careful and try and find a teacher, I would say,
Yeah.
that you trust.
One step forward, thousand steps back. One step
Absolutely.
forward,
Yeah.
thousand steps back.
Yeah.
Always
Yes.
very slow progression.
Mm.
Make sure you're thoroughly grounded in your knowledge and your roots at all
Yes.
times.
Yes. Yeah, but I think the whole concept of of seeking the philosopher's stone, and I think all of us unconsciously are doing that, is how can I transmute my baser
Mm.
feelings or emotions or thoughts into something that's more conscious, more, as you say, more light filled. And that's the whole
Yes.
concept of but so just talk to us about how astrology can help us
Mm.
do that.
Well, I was just about to start talking about the idea of astrological magic, but I just want to add a rejoinder to something you've just said. The idea of us becoming more and more refined, lighter, it's a nice aspiration. But the more I've got into working with Chiron and Pluto over the last decade or two, the more I've realized that the more we try and get rid of our dark side, the stronger it becomes. And that we have to find a space in ourselves, not only for our light energies, but also our dark energies. We have to
It's
be
about
clear.
owning the dark, though, isn't it? It's about not allowing it to run us unconsciously. It's about being conscious of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say to myself, I've got my shadow, and I've tried for years to get rid of
No.
it. Ah, oh, I like my shadow. My shadow's fun. But very few people have seen it. Um, he's locked away. He's not locked. He's got a nice little dungeon, and he's got the key. And under certain controlled circumstances, he can come out and play, and he's
Yeah.
welcome. He's part of the
Yeah.
team. So
Yeah.
I will never aspire to be pure love and light whilst I'm stuck here in a three-dimensional body, because I love my dark side as well.
I think the
So
other thing is, Steve, we wouldn't be able to survive in this world without our dark side.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely.
Mm.
So equal and opposite,
Yeah.
and we can elevate both of them. It's not just about elevating ourselves into the light. That's a misused term. It's about elevating our consciousness and aspiring to become a cleaner, better person, whilst at the same time retaining all of our functionalities, light and dark.
Mm. Well,
And
alchemy
any
is all about burning things out and allowing the ashes to come, and then a phoenix arising. I think that's the whole
that, yes,
symbology of it. And what does that phoenix
yes,
mean? And then that
yes,
too dies. So there's a constant state of transmutation going on through life.
And whenever you try and work with the magical energies, and I define this magic with a small m and magic with a big M, and magic with a big M is stage magic, card tricks,
Yeah.
sort of woman in half, man in half.
It's cool.
Small magic is real, but the more you use the small magic to try and elevate your consciousness and become purer, the magic will then look at you and go, food. Okay. Whereas if you go into magic with light and dark equal, in a balanced state inside yourself, comfortable in your own skin, knowing who you are, you will come out of it unscathed.
Yes.
As long as you're not greedy.
So
Which
let's
brings us to the
talk about
astrological.
the how we can work with the planets or astrology to enable us to have this more of a balance in our life.
I've been doing a lot of work in recent weeks, understanding the difference of the philosophies of some of the great Greek astrologers of the past. I can now quote more authoritatively on what the difference is between Ptolemy, Pythagoras, and Plato, for example, when it comes to angle, aspect, harmony, music, sound. And every planet has its higher octave. Every planet. So you cannot say that one particular planet is related to magic or alchemy. They all are. They all have their higher and their lower octaves and their higher and lower frequencies. There are certain planets that do stand out, and here the traditional astrologers will jump on me because I'm looking at the outer planets. Before 1760 and the discovery, 1761, and the discovery of Uranus, we had no idea of the existence of Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. And the realms that they rule, i.e. the psychological, the neurotic, the imaginal, the dramatic, they were all hinted at, but never really expressed or known or talked about. So pre-1760, the idea of astrological magic was much more in the realm of, Saturn is evil, Jupiter is lovely, Venus is all about love, and Mars is all about war. Now, this has changed. With the advent of the outer planets, we have Neptune, and yes, of course, Neptune can be all about escapism and addiction and avoidance, but it's also about spirituality and enlightenment and the imagination, the dream.
And music.
Whatever you can dream. Goethe said, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it now, because boldness has magic and genius in it. And with Pluto, we can understand the light and dark. We can understand the difference between transformation, where we shift our shape, and transmutation, which is much deeper, because it's about changing almost like changing our DNA or our genetic code, which is obviously impossible, but it's about refining it and streamlining it. And but Uranus, I've seen people, when you find people with a strong Uranus conjunct the ascendant, or conjunct or opposite the sun or moon by less than 1 degree, you will find people who can do very strange things. One of my best friends at the moment, she has no idea what she does or who she is, but she is a magician.
Because she's got Uranus conjunct the ascendant?
No, in this particular case, she has a very, very powerful void moon, then at 29 degrees of one of the signs. And she has an exact square between the sun and Neptune. But she can bend spoons in a way, and knives and forks
Uri Geller stuff.
Oh, no, much better than him.
Oh, wow.
Much better. I've seen her bend spoons all over the place, and it's kind of, whoa. I've not seen it. She can't do it when anyone's watching her.
Oh, interesting.
But I've seen the spoons. So, but this is it's not stage magic because she's not doing it for anyone else. But she can alter the substance of materials with the power of the mind. And it's not that she sets out to do it. She puts herself into a null space and allows herself to just flow and dance.
Would you say that's the Neptune?
I would.
Very,
And the void moon.
and the void moon. So talk to us about the void moon, because I find that really interesting. And magic.
In a nutshell, a void moon, the moon changes sign every 2.5 days. Every 2.5 days, the moon will make an aspect to every planet in the sky. There comes a time between the last aspect the moon will make before it leaves a sign and the moment it leaves a sign. That gap can be as short as 2 minutes or as long as 24 hours, and it changes every 2.5 days. That is called a void moon. The moon is void something like 16 to 17% of the time over a 10-year period. So you would think that 16 to 17% of people would be born on a void moon, but it's only actually 2% of people are born on.
Wow. And that's 29 degrees?
It could be anywhere.
It could be anywhere.
For example, in recent times, when we've had Pluto at the very end of Capricorn and now Neptune at the end of Pisces, most void moons have been very short. But when you've got a lot of planets in the sky at the start of signs, then the moon will make a last aspect to something in the middle of a sign, and that's it. It's void then for 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
So it's not limited by degrees. However, 29 degrees of a sign, of any sign,
Yes.
is somewhat, I'm not going to be derogative and use the word spooky, unusual.
Yes.
29 degrees of every sign has a strange connotation, and some more than others.
Yes.
29 Pisces, you've got a giant star, begins with H, I can't remember it. 29 Sag, you've got Galactic Center. 29 Leo, you've got Perseus, the royal star. 29 Scorpio is just weird. 29 Taurus, 29 Taurus, you have the Pleiades.
Yes. So it's kind of got knobs on then.
Yeah. And it's more than planetary energy.
Yes. Yes.
Stellar energy. Stellar.
Yeah, it's stellar. It's absolutely.
And to lessee, to someone who doesn't know what they're actually doing or looking at, it could be indistinguishable from what they might term magic.
Or they might be it might be so normal for them, but spooky things might happen and they'll go, why does it happen to me?
And then everyone else will be going, he's a witch, she's spooky.
Yeah, or they're weirdos.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it's really important to get your chart done so that you understand what you're working with.
When you see, there are certain, especially with Uranus, with the sun, moon, or ascendant, these are people who can actively channel electrical energy. They carry so much static. And, you know, people will brush up against them and they go, oh. And it's like you touch an escalator or a cat and you go, it's that type of static, which is why I always say to people with a strong Uranus conjunction or opposition, wear or carry a piece of amber. Because for some reason, amber neutralizes that static energy, because amber is one of the very few things on this planet that is not carbon or silicon.
It's resin.
It's a resin.
Ancient resin.
Ancient resin.
Yes, ancient.
I have quite a lot of it.
I wonder also, with a very strong Uranus, is this sense of having incredibly sharp downloads, because it is a higher, I mean, for me, it's almost like, I don't know how to put it into words, this sort of spark energy, and then sudden realizations or sudden downloads or sudden visions or something like that. And it may be one of those nanosecond ones.
It is. I often describe this as saying like Pluto is strong. Pluto conjunctions or oppositions do open one up to genuinely psychic phenomena. and you really don't want to go there because most psychic phenomena is not fun at all.
No.
Neptune opens you up to much more intuitive
Yeah.
phenomena and spiritual phenomena. Uranus opens you up to precognitive phenomena, as in your time
Instinct.
zone is
Yes.
different to that of people around you. You know when someone's just about to say something, and
Yes.
get out of my head syndrome. You
Yes.
say it just before they do, or you know when a lorry's just coming around the corner.
It's that
Driver 5 seconds
intuitive
ahead of the
one,
curve.
isn't it? Yes.
So,
But
and
also,
again,
would you agree that people have, I mean, we're going a little bit off beam here with the magic, we'll come back in a sec, but with a very strong Uranus, there's sudden things happen to you that you just come out of the blue and they kind of,
yes,
they shove you forward, or
yes,
everything blows up and you're going, well, hang on a minute, I'm standing in the ashes here. What's happened? And then,
yes,
yeah. And then again, it's this, I think, let's go back to the magic. It's this opportunity for the phoenix to arise.
there
What
is.
that means.
Before we turned this broadcast live, we were talking about how the study of magic, particularly amongst younger women in today's world, is becoming more and more of a common phenomena.
Yeah.
And I am a little cautious around this because I have to say, what is people's motives? What is the reason for wanting to learn this? What is the reason for wanting to study magic? Because if it is in any shape or form for personal gain or personal power or to become stronger inside oneself, you're going to screw up and it's probably going to
Yeah.
hurt.
I think a lot of people are drawn to magic, and I did a lot of magic work when I was around about 30, 40. I wanted to manifest things in my life for me. I remember that. And I think there is this sense, I'm not saying everyone is doing it, but there is this sense that if I can use the magic, then I can manifest anything. And it's sort of like, it's sort of a step beyond focusing your thought, because then I can bring herbs into it, astrology into it, and the ritual circle, the four corners, and it makes it much more intensely ritual. But as you say, if you don't know what you're doing, be careful for what you ask for.
What is your purpose in doing this?
Yes.
If it is for any other reason at all apart from benefiting this planet and benefiting the whole of humanity, then you're going to screw up and it could get nasty.
Mm,
You have to have a clear, pure intention.
yeah.
Intent is
Well,
the biggest force here in magic.
for your highest good and the highest good of all. And you've got to
Yes.
let go of what that highest good is. Because if you attach and understand, your interpretation of, oh, it's for my highest good for this to happen. No, that's not allowing the universe and the planetary energies to work with you.
My interpretation of what's good for me is probably going to be very different to someone like Joe Biden or Donald Trump. So yeah, again, one planet, 8 billion different worlds. So really, the thing is, as with astrology, magic has a form of valence. It has a life force of its own. With astrology, people don't find astrology. Astrology finds people. If astrology has found you, it's because she feels that you're worth working with and you have something that can be developed that's going to aid you, the planet, and astrology. Magic is the same. People don't choose to work with magic. Magic chooses to work with people. And if magic finds you, then allow the magic to dictate the pace. And as soon as you get the first sign of, oh, I'm stepping a bit too far here, back off.
Yeah. And it's about really respecting the unseen, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, the unseen. Steve, I'm conscious of time. Is there anything else that you would like to say about the whole concept? I mean, this is such an enormous subject, and we've just literally haven't
literally
even
just
scratched the top of
we haven't even
the
opened the lid.
mountain
We just
yet. Yeah.
looked
Is
through
there,
one lens at it.
yeah. Is
Um,
there anything else that you would like to say about alchemy and astrology and magic?
Nicholas Culpeper knew a lot about this.
He did.
And Culpeper was one of the greatest astrologers and the greatest herbalist of all time.
I have his book.
And this sounds very patronizing, but go and find yourself an old lady or an old man who's been looking at this for 30 or 40 years. It doesn't mean they know more than you, but they've got more experience than you. So they'll be wiser than you. So they'll guide you, not in what to do, but in what not to do.
Yes.
And that's always a good start.
It's a very good start.
Yes.
Yeah. And just take care of your souls, take care of yourselves,
Yes.
take care of your desires, and make sure that, as Steve says, that they're coming from a place of growth rather than the place of I want.
Don't negate your dark side, but work with it as part of the team. Don't strive towards the light, but keep the dark with you as a companion also. And you won't go wrong.
I think that's a great place to end. Well, thank you again, Steve. Loved this conversation. There's so much more
Yeah,
to
really good
explore.
one.
And we'll see everyone next time.